Hello, and welcome to Let's Talk. Today's segment is going to focus on the social, emotional, and mental health supports we provide to our students in Winston-Salem-Forsyth County Schools. And joining me today, I have a great group. I've got Dr. Frederica Stokes, and she's our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services. I've got Dr. Heather Swickrath, and she is our Director of Psychology. Am I getting these titles right? Make sure, correct me if I'm getting these titles right. And it's Dr. Swickrath, and I apologize for stumbling on that. Some people call her Dr. S. And Latrell Adams, and she is our Director of Social and Emotional Learning. And so I've got a great group, all representing student services. These are the folks every day that work directly with our school psychologists, our school social workers, our principals, our assistant principals, teachers directly in the field to make sure that our students do have the supports and services they need. And so today we are really going to drill down into our mental health plan and our social emotional learning plan. It's all one plan. And what this looks like on a daily basis for our students. I know that recently we had our high school student forum, and there was a question about mental health and what supports are available to students, and then how do students know about these supports in their schools. So I want to start with the first question, and that really is going to be, what are the components of our social emotional learning and mental health plan, specifically for our school district? What are the components in our plan? And I'm going to ask Dr. Stokes to start us out.
Sure. So 2 years ago, the state, the Department of Public Instruction required all districts in the state of North Carolina to submit a social emotional learning and mental health plan. And so that plan runs a span of 5 years, and each year we're responsible for updating the plan to make them aware of our progress. So the components of the SEL plan, SEL and mental health plan, is one, to make sure that we do have an SEL initiative. We have core programming that relates to SEL, not only for our students, but also for our staff. The second component are our mental health supports. They want us to list what type of mental health supports that we provide, how are we working with our community, and then last but not least, our professional development for our staff. And so those three components mainly consist of the SEL, the mental health supports, and professional development for our staff and supports for our students.
Awesome. So we're going to dig into some of that because I know we've been doing a lot of training that I'm going to ask you to actually speak about. But let's start first with the mental health support. So actually, you know what? No, change that. I'm going to start first with how do all kids, because we've got, I know it's just like with everything MTSS, you've got support that's all kids are going to be seeing all the time, and then you've got layers, like I need something more than that. I'm having, I'm stressed, or I'm having anxiety, I need more than that, and so then I'll come back to you, Heather, to talk about more. Let's start just in general with social emotional learning, and how is that even related to mental health supports, and then how does that show up in our schools right now? Latrell.
Yeah, so I think social emotional learning, like for me, it is the plate, it is the thing. And I think when, as a district, I sit on a lot of state SEL teams and talk about the work. And we are really at the top in setting the standard for implementation of SEL and being able to provide our students with a lot of support. And so what that looks like in our district is that all of our students having access to utilize and practice and cultivate the skills of social emotional learning through our explicit curriculum programs that we use, which are Second Step and Wayfinder. And so this really is important because as we think about just the skills that students need for life, right? And so we think about those skills, those are those skills, being able to be self-aware, being able to manage yourself, being able to build healthy relationships, being able to manage conflict, being able to collaborate, being able to make responsible decisions. All of those things play a critical role in being able to have those, being able to buffer against when stresses arise, being able to know that what are the resources that I can utilize if I'm having a difficult time. And so being able to be in a space where we are encouraging that, empowering our students to think about, what they need in order to thrive, and not just survive, but what is it that I need on a daily basis to be able to thrive? And so through our curriculum programs, that's teaching students those skills, being able to have those conversations with our students so they can leverage all of the support that we have within our district.
And when you think about the explicit instruction, I know, and you've said this many times, that it is, to really get at the heart of social emotional learning and all of these skills and competencies. It's done through explicit, but then all day long. And I think that, you embody this. You try to get everybody else to think about like all day long integration.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but can you talk real quick about so the explicit curriculum, because this is where schools are actually implementing differently, but it's been adopted system-wide. And so when you think about Wayfinder at secondary, I'm always hearing things about, Wayfinder's not being used, or Wayfinder, and I know that not to be the case, but I know that it may look different in each school as far as what period they do it or how they're doing it. Some schools have actually taken off a little bit of every period, and they have built in a home room.
Absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing, because you're out in the field all the time observing this in action.
Right.
And so I really want to know, because some students have told me, yes, we're doing it, and then others have said, like the other day at Forum, well, we're not, they're not making the connection to seeing this in action. So can you talk a little bit about what it's looking like in our schools right now? And I want everybody to also remember, and I say this all the time, is we're talking about 53,000 kids here and large scale implementation. And so to think about, we're in year 2, I believe. Are we in year 2? Last year was year 1.
We're in year 2.
Year 2, we're in good shape, but can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so one of the things when we first did the plan of rolling out curriculum, it was really important for us to have a decentralized rollout to where we understood that if we have 81 schools, then it was going to be 81 cultures and 81 ways of doing things. And so we wanted schools and principals to really have the autonomy to figure out what was going to work best for their school and their culture so that it could be implemented with fidelity. And so across the district, as you were saying, we see that implemented, first thing in the morning on a Monday. We see it implemented on, a Wednesday, a Friday. It could, take place in a variety of different ways. But schools are really in a space where they are embedding it into their system. And it's not just, one of the things that our SEL coaches are really working with our schools heavily on is, yes, we want you to do the explicit SEL, and that is critical, and it's really important for us to have that set aside time. But then, like you said, I think that's the thing that really takes it to the next level, is how are we integrating SEL throughout the day? How are we making sure that it's not just a checkbox situation where, we did it on Marvelous Monday, we did it on Wonderful Wednesday, and now we're done. We've done our SEL for the week. And so we've really been coaching our schools on making sure that it is a systemic and sustainable thing within the buildings. And so we've seen folks who are implementing it, consistently every week, and they're getting the gains from that. And so we're continuing to provide supports with our schools that, and it typically, a lot of times, to be honest with you, it's our high schools that struggle the most, because there's so many different things that, of course, not saying that elementary and middle don't have as many competing priorities, but it becomes a little bit more difficult to integrate it into a high school schedule. And so we're working to provide those supports with our schools to make sure that our high school students, that's always been really important for us, to make sure that all of our students get that opportunity. And so we're seeing our schools doing it. We are seeing our schools doing it. Some are, taking it off, and they're sprinting ahead, and they're doing it. And some are, walking a little bit at a slower pace. But our schools are doing it. We are seeing it consistently across the board that our schools are doing it. Our SEL coaches do school visits. They're probably doing a school visit right now. They do school visits consistently to see how this is being implemented in our district. And we have some rock star teachers who are, really implementing it at the next level. And, and I really want to commend like our district, because on November 21st, we're having a state SEL showcase where our district was selected because of all the great things that we're doing with SEL. So
good.
there are some growth areas.
Yes, always.
Always some growth areas. We are in our second year,
Yeah.
right? And so we know that it takes 3 to 5 years for something to really take root, but we're doing it, and we're seeing that across the board.
I'm excited about
And
it. Go ahead.
Latrell's team also meet with the SEL leads at the school to provide professional development so that they can really start taking ownership
Right.
Of SEL and the implementation at the school level. So each school has a contact person. It could be a counselor, it could be a social worker, and it also could be some of our teachers. And so they provide professional development so that we can sustain the program and embed it even more into more than just one particular class or just 30 minutes. We want it all throughout the day so that our kids can get that experience.
And Dr. Stokes, I'm glad that you said that, because I think that one of the things that our district has done well, and that it continues to be something I like to highlight, is that our focus on adult SEL, because that's where it really has a impact on students, when the adults that are in front of them all day are
Yes.
modeling
Yes.
the skills that are necessary and needed for life. And so we do that focus on adult SEL through professional development and presentations and meeting with our teachers and educators across the district.
I'm seeing, I honestly am seeing tons of evidence on social media around teachers like engaged in professional development and then doing things in their class. And it's obvious, and you walk into any classroom, it's obvious when a teacher, or even in a school culture, when the idea behind SEL is actually really embraced, and that it's just part of the culture. But all the skills that our students are learning are critical for life. And so when we think about like we've adopted the North Carolina Portrait of a Graduate, in that portrait we talk about empathy being a critical skill that kids need to develop. That's part of what they're learning through social emotional learning. We talk about all that. So there's a direct connection, collaboration, communication,
adaptability, all of
personal
that.
responsibility, yet again, learner's mindset. All of these things are, so there's complete links and alignment between our adoption of the portrait and SEL. Now, so all students are, we're trying to create this culture and also restorative culture in our schools. So the work of the code also aligns, it all works together. So I'm going to turn to like now, so a student is getting this and they're in this environment, yet they still need additional supports. They're having an issue, it might be a one-time issue, or it just might be childhood trauma that is coming out, and they need additional helps. I'm going to turn to Heather, Dr. Swithgrath, and have you talk a little bit more about the on-site services first, and like what do students have in their reach at school to provide other kinds of supports, and then we'll go to like what is offered in the community as well.
Okay. So in the school setting, each school has an assigned counselor, social worker, and school psychologist. So they are fabulous resources, not just for the students, but for the families as well. So they have a lot of connections to our outside community and may know community partners that families could reach out to if it's something that we can't address within the school setting. But they are available for, like you said, that short term, hey, maybe it's just something that's upsetting you for the moment. Let's come in, let's talk about it, let's kind of problem solve, and where can we go from there? Now, if a student is having more higher level difficulties and the counselor, social worker, or psychologist feel maybe they need some additional supports, we do have community agencies that have partnered with us. Last year we had 8. This year we have 13. So when Wanda Kellyman, our mental health coordinator, and I came on board, we made some connections with community partners, and we were able to get our request for proposals out to some community listservs. So that brought in the additional agencies. So we're hoping next year we can even add to that. But those community agencies have partnered with us. Every school in our system has one. There are a couple of, like, special children's school doesn't have one, but all of our traditional elementary, middle, high school have a provider. The counselors, social workers, and psychologists have all been made aware how to make that referral. We have a standardized referral form that they can get to the provider assigned at their school, and then that student can receive individual one-on-one counseling. And then if the provider feels that it would be beneficial, they could also do some family counseling as well. So we have all of those supports in place to help our students and our families. Wanda and I have also been working with some of our community partners, like Denise Price from Forsyth County Mental Health, Andy Hagler from the Mental Health Association. So we've been partnering with them and meeting with community providers to make those connections so that when students do have difficulties or the family is in need, we know who to reach out to and provide those services. And this year we are in year 2 of our partnership with CrossNor, Center for Trauma Resilient Communities. So we've been working, providing some professional development for our champion trainers, and I think a lot of this ties in with the work that Latrell and her team have been doing, because a lot of it mirrors SEL work. But we're doing professional development for our staff as well. What is trauma resilience? And so many of our students unfortunately have experienced trauma in their lives, and it manifests in different ways. So to be able to recognize that and to help those students, I think is a key piece as well. So we have a training coming up at the end of the month. We're doing our first 3-day training for this school year, and then in the spring we're going to do another 3-day training. So we're hoping that some of our staff, teachers, administrators, TAs, anyone who wants to join to learn more about the trauma resilient communities, they can join us. If they can't do it for the 3-day block at the end of this month, we're going to try and stagger it a little bit in the spring, because I know being out of a school for a 3-day consecutive piece is difficult for some people. So in the spring we're going to try and stagger it a little bit in the hopes to capture more of an audience and continue that work and to collaborate that with our SEL.
And I love that our district is focusing on trauma resilient, because it's really at the core of it is thinking about how is it that I'm showing up on a daily basis? How am I interacting with, because even as adults, we come to work with our experiences and our trauma, and we bring that, right? And so it's about how am I showing up? How am I interacting with other people? And so it really goes back to the relationships, the self-awareness, the making responsible decisions, so that we can be our best selves for each other and our best selves for kids.
And the ability to recognize, hey, I was thinking this way. Can we sit and talk and let's
we
figure
just did
this
that
out.
last week.
I love that. I love that. And there's a connection. And then Dr. Stokes, will you share more? Because there's a connection to all this work.
Oh, it all blends together.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and honestly, and this is critical work so that I can really be ready for my academic learning. And so
Absolutely.
that's not going to happen without this.
Absolutely.
And so can you talk more about, because I think the work we're doing with CrossNor is incredible, and it is some people are coming to this more like, all these hours of training, but every single employee of our system is getting, or all our staffs are getting the video series we've created. Dr. Stokes, will you say a little bit more about that?
Yep, sure. We started last year. We are required through our mental health planning for the state to make sure that teachers and staff are receiving training on mental health. It starts off with 6 hours, and then it moves to 2 hours each year after your initial year in the district. And so we've used videos through Safe Schools, and we've also worked with trauma-informed practices to make sure that we put a video out so that everyone could know about our work that we're doing with CrossNor. So that video went out last year. That was the first round, and then we have video number 2 that may be completed or almost completed and will be coming out soon, where teachers are able to go in, they're able to watch the video, get strategies. Last school year, our schools did a really good job of not only just watching the video, but they all came together and they actually had a discussion regarding what it meant to their school. They had some guiding questions that they used to determine, how do we implement these practices? What do we need more of? And so that's been implemented across the district, the videos, and then just additional, we have first aid, youth mental health training that will be coming up, but we've made trainings both virtual and we've made them face-to-face training for students. But when we look at our, for staff, when we look at for our students, we are planning and we're very excited. We have a tentative date in February. We're going to host 2 mental health wellness trainings for our students. It'll be for 250 students at the middle school level and 250 students at the high school level, and we're planning for February. We've met with some of our students and they've given us ideas about what they want to see at the actual training or professional development wellness day for them. They're really interested in, they don't want to sit and get, they want a lot of hands-on activities, interactive. They want to know, how do they deal with stress? And so they've given us a starting point for our Mental Health Wellness Summit that will be coming up in February. So we're really excited about that. SEL will be there. We've also worked with CrossNor and different community agencies will be coming in to help train. But we're really excited about that. And we're excited about having our community partners in our schools, because what that looks like is this is a therapist that can see them long term, not just short term, and they can see them for a variety of things that are out of the scope of a regular school counselor or social worker. And so those school-based providers are at the school at least 2 to 3 days a week, depending upon how many clients that they're seeing, students that they're seeing at the school, and they're there and they pull them in. That way parents don't have to take them after school or don't have to try to, get them there before school or during the school day. They're right there. They come down to the office and they have their session and they really meet with them. At the beginning of this year, a lot of our providers were at open house so that they could share the resources with the families to make them aware. And then they were also at our staff meetings with faculty to share with them this is the referral process and this is what it looks like in our schools. So really excited about the work that our community is doing also to help us address the mental health needs, because our school counselors and social workers, psychs, and our nurses, because our nurses do a lot in that area also, they're just not enough. We need the community support, and they are really sharing and helping us.
And we do have the partnership also with the School Health Alliance.
Yes.
So they are a provider at some of our schools. They also have a brick and mortar site at several of our schools where they can do, not just mental health, but also physical health. Immunizations, well visits, things of that nature. And I know our focus currently is on students, but we've also started to address mental health of our staff as well. And this year, the School Health Alliance has been approved by the board to provide services to our staff. So I know our communications department sent out information, and we've also sent the information to HR that we can get that information out to our staff, that those mental health resources, because we know EAP for the past year or so, there's been a 6-8 month wait to speak to someone through EAP services, but School Health Alliance is also available not just to our students but to our staff as well.
Their board agreed to, School Health Alliance board agreed to add on the components of staff.
That's great.
Not just working with students anymore, and they offer virtual counseling also, as well as face-to-face counseling through the School Health Alliance. And that's a really big change, and it's just more support for our teachers also.
Every time I sit down with you all and I learn something new about a resource that we have, and we have so many great resources, and our community is incredible. As far as all of the, and we've got the mental health resources and the therapy, the therapist, but we also have so many resources that are on this preventative, even around behavior. So many groups that are working with us that we can refer students to, and our school staffs have all of this at their fingertips. I know we're about to wrap up, but I wanted to ask one more question, and this was a great thing. I was visiting a school the other day, and the counselor was in the classroom, which was great because she was, talking to students about the ways that the counseling team can support. And so I think it's really important. One of the students at the forum said, how do we learn about all these resources? Can you all talk to, like, how do kids know that, hey, if you've got a problem, there are counselors, social workers, or if you need even more, we've got these providers that can provide you even more support, and families. How do we get the word out to kids, even about what we're doing with social emotional learning, and maybe we're doing some things, but I'm wondering how we can really even just go even more hardcore on getting the word out so kids know what's available. Do you know how folks are currently doing that in schools?
I think exactly what you said through classroom guidance, especially at the elementary school level. They'll tell you they're in the rotation.
Yes.
And so a lot of times they go in and they share out what the different resources are, or they talk with them about their feelings and things of that nature and who to come see. And it's very similar to what they do at the middle and high school level also. Not typically going through classes. Sometimes they do small groups, or they do class groups like with 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders as they're sharing, especially like with seniors as they're preparing and sharing with them, what are the next steps after graduation. They're always sharing, this is what your school counselor is here to do. This is what social workers are here to do, especially with families. And so a lot of classroom guidance, and then a lot of big class meetings is when that information is typically shared. And then especially in small settings, when a referral is made, they're making sure that teachers, because teachers are typically, the first line. When a teacher is seeing that there's some concerns, that they make sure that they are referring to counselors also. So they do a lot of classroom guidance, and then they also share through small groups with students, and then they do parent nights with families also.
I think that's good. I wonder if we could, and this just came to me, because there's so many ways the word is getting out. I'm wondering in this day of kids are so creative, if we could just get a student group, maybe we could do this with a superintendent advisory or another group, but create a student made video about social emotional learning and mental health supports and what's available coming from the mouths of students, and have every school show that in a morning show, something like that. So maybe it's just another, not to add to y'all's plate. It sounds like we got, but I'm trying to think of one more avenue to make sure kids know.
And we already have that student group selected, so it's not a matter of finding students willing to do it. We already have that group.
We can have them create the video, because I think that they know what's going to have kids listen, and so we can have them create the video. So let's add that to our list so that we can get that out. I'm hoping at the next student forum, and I think the idea will be to bring back the same students in the spring again to meet with the board to see what have they seen shift. And I think the communication of all this, because we've got so much going on and offered.
That's what I was going to say, is just making sure that the adults that are leading this work, that we're being explicit, and we are saying, hey, you're about to do a SEL lesson, right? So sometimes I think these things are happening, but the communication of it to where a student can speak intelligently about it may be a little bit trickier because we're not being as explicit
in our language.
And so I think just being able to coach folks, within our district to be able to share that information, and to, again, like I was saying earlier, it's not just a checkbox. This is explicitly what we're doing, and this is why we're doing it. I think that will help, get even more of the word out, to students, and they'll be like, oh yeah, we do that, right? Exactly. I didn't connect it, but oh yeah, absolutely, we do that.
Yep. Yeah. So, well, I'm excited. I just knowing that any student that is dealing with anything or just not having a great day, there are resources in schools to help. They do not have to go at this alone. And so I as we wrap up here, students and staff, you are not alone. We've got resources in every school and in our community to help make sure that you are feeling okay and thriving every day. And so thank you so much to the three of you. and
Thank
all
you.
of our
Thank
student
you.
services staff, like in our schools every day, working with our kids and our school staffs. Thank you so much. I hope everyone will tune in, and there will be more to follow around communications, and so that our students know what is available to you to help you. So with that, thank you everyone,
All right.
and thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.